what's up? We back again like we never left. Y'all know I'm usually with my daughter and I'm with my husband. We are actually on our way to the home of Mr. Juan. This case, y'all, is so disturbing and it's so troubling to me. His murder is one of the strangest murders I've ever covered. I was like, I absolutely have to stop past this house. So we're on our way there right now. Buckle your seatbelts and let's get it popping.
I ain't worried about nothing, I ain't worried about nada. You're sitting pretty impatient, girl, I know you gotta put them in hours, baby, make it harder. You're sending pic after picture, girl, give me fire. You know I'm always on the
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky.
So this is probably one of the most disturbing and strange cases I've had to cover in these YouTube streets, okay? But anyway, let's get right into this thing. So on the evening of August 2nd, 2006, Robert Juan, who was a local attorney, he arrived at the home of his longtime college friend, whose name was Joe Price. He had spent all day, late into the evening, working late at his job at Radio Free Asia. Now, Juan's longtime friend Joe Price was a gay rights attorney. So Joe was in a relationship with a man by the name of Victor Zaborsky. And forgive me if I'm mispronouncing his last name, but Victor and Joe were actually in a relationship together. Now, they also had another third party who was also in a relationship. It was sort of like a love triangle or a three-way relationship. There was a young man by the name of Dylan Ward. Okay, so Joe, Victor, and Dylan were all in a relationship together. And they all shared a home together. And they invited their friend, Robert Juan, to spend the night at their house so that he didn't have to drive all the way to Virginia to go home because he was tired. Now, as I said before, Robert Juan was an attorney. He was married to a woman by the name of Catherine, and to my knowledge, he was a straight male. Now, this is where things get really strange because later on that night, after Robert Juan arrived at his friend Joe Price's home, a couple of hours later, 911 received a frantic phone call from one of the occupants of the home.
Ma'am, calm down. Northwest, am I correct?
Yes, it is.
The person that said something, she's still in the home?
I don't know. The person had one of our knives.
The person that stabbed him ran out the door with a knife?
I think so.
Go ahead. Anybody get any type of description of the person that came in the
I
home?
have no idea. We have no description. We heard the chime, and we heard the scream from our friend.
Okay.
And so we came running downstairs. We ran in.
So you both was upstairs and your friend was downstairs?
Yes.
You heard the door open and then you heard the scream?
I didn't hear the door open until after the scream, and then we ran down the stairs and we heard we have an alarm, and so the chime went off.
Okay.
Is the ambulance, please? We really need the ambulance.
Okay, they en route now, ma'am. Go to the door. They should be pulling up any moment, okay?
I'm afraid to get on stairs.
Okay, y'all, so I have a few problems with this 911 call. Now, again, I don't know who made the 911 call, but it was one of the occupants in the home. My biggest problem with this 911 call is if you listen closely, the caller says to the dispatcher, oh, he used one of our knives, okay? And when the caller says he, I'm assuming that he's referring to the intruder, this phantom intruder who broke into the home and stabbed Robert. This is very suspicious to me, okay? Because number one, the dispatcher didn't ask for the details about the knife. And so the fact that the caller just volunteered this information is kind of suspicious. Also, how do you know that the killer used one of y'all knives from your house? How do you know that? The caller never said, well, you know, we went in the room and we saw the knife and we recognized the knife, so we know that the killer used one of our knives from our house. So how do you know this killer used one of you all's knives? So you mean to tell me your friend gets stabbed, you found him in the bed stabbed, and the first thing y'all do is run to the kitchen to go count the knives? Oh, let's see if the killer used one of our knives. Like, who does that? You find your friend stabbed in bed, the first thing most people are going to do is call 911. I really feel like that statement was kind of made to cover their asses. This so-called intruder who broke in and only attacked Robert came and went into y'all kitchen and stole one of y'all knives. Like, the killer didn't come with his own weapon. I mean, this case just reeks of deception. It reeks of dishonesty. It reeks of just betrayal and some more stuff, y'all. I also felt like the caller sounded very theatrical. Now, when EMTs and the police arrived on the scene, they found Robert Wan laying dead in a bed. But the strange thing about this is that the bed was very neatly made. Now, all three of these men who were occupants of this home, Joe, Victor, and Dylan, they told law enforcement that they didn't know what had happened, and as far as they were concerned, an intruder broke into the home. But the interesting thing about it is that when law enforcement looked into this theory, they found that that was damn near impossible, y'all, because there was no sign of a break-in in this home. And also, it was later determined that the crime scene had been cleaned up before the police and paramedics were called to the scene. Along with the fact that the crime scene was cleaned up, it also appeared that possible evidence relating to this case had been tampered with. Now, investigators eventually ended up sealing off this house, and for a while, all three of the occupants were forced to move out of the home temporarily because law enforcement was actively investigating this house, trying to find any evidence. Now, this investigation dragged on for over 2 years, y'all. Now, eventually, prosecutors were able to obtain an indictment against all three men on obstruction of justice, tampering with evidence, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. But no charges directly related to the murder were brought against these three gentlemen. Now, at the same time that charges were being formally brought against these three men, a detailed arrest affidavit was released to the public, and this left everybody who knew these three men in complete shock.